One of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is believing that constant availability will make someone value them more. They think replying instantly, always checking in first, always making time, and always being emotionally available will strengthen the connection. But human psychology does not always work that way. In many cases, when someone knows they have unlimited access to your attention, they slowly stop appreciating the value of it. Not because you are not enough, but because there is no space left for them to feel your absence. See, when your energy is constantly around someone, they never have the opportunity to wonder about you. There's no mystery, no emotional tension, no moment where they sit alone thinking about your presence, because your presence is always available on demand. And over time, what was once exciting starts feeling predictable. That's why being too available often weakens attraction without people realizing it. You answer every text within seconds, even when they take hours. You rearrange your schedule every time they call. You constantly initiate conversations because you fear the silence means they are losing interest. And the more afraid you become of losing them, the more you unintentionally teach them that your attention will always be there, no matter how little effort they give in return. But the moment your energy changes, everything changes. When you stop over-explaining yourself, when you stop forcing conversations, when you stop checking your phone every minute waiting for a message, a different dynamic begins to form. Suddenly, the emotional certainty they once had starts disappearing. They notice your absence because your attention no longer feels automatic. And this is where curiosity is born, because people naturally pay attention to what feels less accessible. When your energy is no longer constantly chasing them, they begin wondering why. They start noticing your silence. They begin checking if you posted something. They read conversations. They think about you during quiet moments because your emotional presence is no longer filling every space in their life. But understand this carefully. Pulling your energy back is not about playing childish games. Real power is not pretending to be busy while secretly obsessing over someone. Real power is genuinely reconnecting with your own life. It's remembering that your world should never become so small that it revolves entirely around another person's attention. Because the moment you make someone the center of your emotional stability, you begin losing yourself trying to keep them close. And people can feel that energy. Desperation creates pressure. Neediness creates emotional heaviness. But when someone senses that you are emotionally grounded, focused on your own purpose, your own happiness, your own peace, your presence starts feeling different, calmer, more attractive, more valuable, because confidence is silent. It does not beg for replies. It does not panic during temporary distance. It does not constantly seek reassurance to feel secure. And ironically, the less you chase someone's attention, the more they start paying attention to you. That's the part most people never understand. The goal is not to make someone miss you through manipulation. The goal is to stop abandoning yourself just to maintain emotional access to another person. Because when you reclaim your time, your focus, and your energy, you naturally become more attractive without even trying. And sometimes, the moment you stop making someone your entire world is the exact moment they realize how much space you truly occupied in theirs. Most people are terrified of silence in relationships. The moment communication slows down, panic takes over. They immediately assume something is wrong. So they start sending extra messages, asking emotional questions, trying to force conversations, trying to fix a distance that may not even need fixing yet. And without realizing it, they destroy the very thing that could have made the other person reflect on their value, because silence is powerful. Silence creates space, and space forces people to think. When someone is constantly hearing from you, constantly receiving your attention, constantly being emotionally reassured by your presence, they rarely stop to truly evaluate what you mean to them. Your energy becomes part of their routine, expected, familiar, always there. But when that emotional noise disappears, the mind reacts differently. Suddenly, your absence becomes noticeable. That's why silence creates emotional tension in a way words often cannot. The human mind is naturally curious. When access changes, people start asking questions internally. Why did she pull back? Why does her energy feel different? Is she moving on? Did I lose her attention? And those questions create emotional reflection. But most women never allow silence to work in their favor because they rush to fill every gap with reassurance. The moment a man becomes distant, they immediately chase clarity. They double text. They over-explain feelings. They try harder to keep the connection alive because they believe more effort will bring someone emotionally closer. But attraction doesn't grow from emotional pressure. In fact, too much pressure often pushes people further away. Because nobody reflects deeply when they are constantly being emotionally fed, silence interrupts emotional comfort. It forces someone to sit alone with their thoughts. And in that space, they begin noticing things they ignored when your attention was always available. Your warmth, your consistency, your emotional support. The conversations they took for granted suddenly feel different once they are gone. And this is where emotional tension begins building naturally. Not through manipulation, not through pretending not to care, but through genuine emotional restraint. Through learning not to react impulsively. Every time fear enters your mind, because emotional maturity means understanding that silence does not always need to be chased or controlled. Sometimes silence reveals more truth than words ever could. See, people often expose their real intentions during moments of distance. If someone truly values your presence, your absence will affect them. They will feel the shift. They will notice the emotional gap. But if you constantly rush to rescue every moment of silence, you never give the connection room to breathe, reflect, or reveal itself honestly. And the strongest thing you can do during emotional distance is remain centered within yourself, not cold, not bitter, calm. Continue focusing on your life, your goals, your peace, your growth. Because when your entire emotional state depends on immediate responses or constant validation, you unintentionally give away your power. But when you can remain emotionally balanced, even during silence, your energy changes completely. That confidence becomes attractive because calmness communicates value. It shows that your life does not collapse every time communication slows down. It shows emotional strength. And emotionally strong people create curiosity because they are not controlled by fear. Eventually, silence starts speaking louder than chasing ever could. Because while you are peacefully focused on yourself, the other person is left with something they cannot ignore anymore, the feeling of your absence. And sometimes, the silence you feared the most becomes the exact thing that makes someone finally realize your value. One of the fastest ways to lose yourself emotionally is making another person the center of your entire world. The moment your happiness starts depending on their attention, their replies, their mood, or their presence, you slowly stop living your own life and begin orbiting around theirs. And many people do this without even realizing it. They stop focusing on their goals. They neglect their passions. They ignore their health, their peace, their growth, all because they become emotionally consumed by one person. And that energy changes everything. Because when someone feels that your entire emotional world revolves around them, the connection starts feeling heavy instead of inspiring. Not because caring is wrong, but because losing yourself in the process creates imbalance. You begin chasing reassurance instead of building your own confidence. Your days become controlled by whether they texted you back. Your mood rises and falls based on their attention. And over time, you forget that your life had purpose before they ever entered it. That's why one of the most powerful things you can do is refocus on yourself again. Not to play games, not to make someone jealous, but because your identity matters too. Your future matters, your dreams matter. And the moment you reconnect with your own life, your energy naturally becomes more attractive. See, people notice when someone is deeply connected to themselves. They notice when a woman is building her future. instead of constantly chasing validation. They notice when her happiness no longer depends entirely on external attention. There is something magnetic about a person who has purpose, peace, discipline, and emotional balance. Because confidence built from self-growth feels completely different from confidence that depends on approval. And this is what many women overlook after emotional distance begins. Instead of rebuilding themselves, they become obsessed with monitoring the other person. Checking social media constantly, analyzing every message, overthinking every delay, trying to decode every small change in behavior. And while all that emotional energy is being wasted on fear and anxiety, their own life slowly stops moving forward. But the moment you shift your focus back onto yourself, something powerful happens. Your mind becomes clearer. Your emotions become calmer. You stop reacting impulsively because your entire identity is no longer attached to keeping someone emotionally close. You begin investing energy into things that actually strengthen you. Your health, your mindset, your career, your healing, your confidence, your peace, and ironically, that shift often changes how the other person sees you too. Because people are naturally drawn toward energy that feels full instead of desperate. When someone sees that you are genuinely enjoying your life, growing emotionally, and becoming stronger without constantly needing their attention, curiosity begins to build. They start wondering why your energy feels different. They notice that your world no longer revolves around them the way it once did, and that creates attraction naturally, not forced attraction, not manipulation. Real attraction built from emotional independence, because someone who has purpose, direction, and inner peace becomes unforgettable. Their presence feels lighter, stronger, more valuable. But the most important part is this. Focusing on yourself is not only about making someone miss you. It's about remembering your own worth outside of relationships. Because the truth is, no connection should ever cost you your identity. You were never meant to spend your entire life chasing attention while abandoning your own growth. And sometimes, the moment you start building a life that genuinely fulfills you is the moment people realize how much they underestimated your value. One of the biggest reasons people lose attraction in relationships is not because love disappears, but because emotional energy changes. When someone constantly feels pressure, fear, insecurity, or desperation coming from you, the connection slowly becomes emotionally exhausting instead of exciting. And this is why confidence is far more powerful than neediness, because confidence feels peaceful. Neediness, on the other hand, feels heavy. It constantly seeks reassurance. It panics over small changes. It overthinks delayed replies, analyzes every word, and fears abandonment at every moment. And when fear controls your behavior, you start acting in ways that push people away without even realizing it. You text too much, trying to hold their attention. You over-explain your feelings, trying to be understood. You become emotionally reactive every time they pull away slightly. And the more you fear losing someone, the tighter you try to hold on to them. But human beings naturally resist emotional pressure. Nobody wants to feel emotionally responsible for another person's stability every second. That's why calm confidence changes everything. Confidence does not mean pretending not to care. It means caring without losing control of yourself. It means knowing your worth even during uncertainty. It means understanding that your value does not disappear just because someone becomes temporarily distant. And people can feel that energy immediately. A confident woman does not collapse emotionally every time communication changes. She does not beg for attention or constantly seek validation to feel secure. She remains grounded within herself, calm, focused, emotionally balanced, and that kind of energy creates attraction because it feels safe, strong, and emotionally mature. See, many women believe that chasing harder will make someone stay closer. But in reality, desperation often creates the opposite. The more emotionally needy you become, the more the relationship begins revolving around fear instead of connection. Conversations stop feeling natural. Interactions feel pressured, and slowly, Attraction weakens under emotional tension, but when you stop acting afraid to lose someone, your entire presence changes. Your words become calmer. Your reactions become more controlled. You stop trying to force closeness every second because your peace no longer depends entirely on someone else's behavior. And strangely, that emotional stability becomes magnetic because confidence creates mystery. It makes people wonder why you are no longer reacting the way they expected, why you seem emotionally stronger, why your energy feels lighter instead of desperate. And that curiosity naturally pulls attention back toward you. But this kind of confidence does not come from pretending to be unbothered. It comes from genuinely rebuilding your relationship with yourself. From learning that your happiness cannot depend completely on external validation. Because once you know you will survive with or without someone, fear loses its control over you. And that freedom changes the dynamic completely. Suddenly, you are no longer trying to keep someone at all costs. You are simply showing up as your best self while maintaining your dignity, your standards, and your peace. That emotional independence creates respect. And respect is one of the foundations of lasting attraction, because at the end of the day, people are drawn toward those who value themselves, those who can love deeply without becoming emotionally consumed by fear, those who bring calmness instead of chaos. And sometimes, the moment you stop chasing someone out of fear is the exact moment they start chasing the energy they thought they would always have access to. A lot of people believe men only miss beauty, excitement, or physical attraction after a relationship changes. They think if they looked more perfect, acted differently, or tried harder to impress someone, the connection would have lasted. But what many fail to understand is that attraction may catch attention, yet emotional peace is what people truly struggle to replace. Because at the end of the day, everyone remembers how you made them feel. They remember the calmness of your presence, the comfort of talking to you after a difficult day, the emotional safety of knowing someone genuinely cared about them without judgment, those quiet moments of support, understanding, loyalty, and peace often become far more valuable than surface-level excitement once they disappear. But sadly, people rarely recognize emotional peace while they still have easy access to it. When someone becomes used to your kindness, your patience, your consistency, they start treating it like something ordinary. They assume your emotional support will always be there. And because human beings often become blind to what feels constant, they overlook the very things that make a relationship meaningful until those things are gone. That's when comparison begins. They enter new conversations expecting the same comfort, but realize not everyone listens the way you did. Not everyone understands them deeply. Not everyone brings calmness instead of drama. Suddenly, the emotional safety they once ignored becomes difficult to replace, and the absence of peace becomes louder than the memory of attraction itself. Because emotional peace is rare in a world filled with ego, games, inconsistency, and emotional confusion, finding someone who genuinely brings peace into your life is uncommon. Someone who supports you sincerely, someone who communicates with care, someone who creates emotional stability instead of constant chaos. Those qualities become unforgettable once lost. And this is why many men return emotionally long after the relationship changes. Not always because they suddenly became wiser overnight, but because life without your emotional presence starts feeling different. He may meet attractive people. He may distract himself temporarily. But eventually, he starts noticing what is missing emotionally. The calmness, the loyalty, the comfort, the emotional connection that once made life feel easier. That realization often arrives quietly, late at night, during difficult moments, during times when stress, loneliness, or emotional exhaustion expose what truly matters. And suddenly he remembers the woman who brought peace into his life while asking for very little in return. But here is what you must understand clearly. Bringing someone peace does not mean abandoning yourself. Many women become emotionally exhausted because they give endless support while neglecting their own needs. They pour love into someone else while silently carrying their own pain alone. Real emotional peace should exist on both sides of the relationship. It should not come from self-sacrifice or emotional imbalance, because your peace matters too. And the moment you stop overgiving, stop chasing validation, and start protecting your own emotional well-being, your value becomes even clearer. Not because you changed who you are, but because your energy now includes self-respect along with kindness. That combination is powerful. A woman who brings peace, loyalty, emotional maturity, and confidence becomes unforgettable because those qualities cannot be easily replaced by temporary attraction alone. And sometimes the thing he misses most is not your appearance, your attention, or even the relationship itself. It's the peace he felt whenever your presence was part of his life. The biggest secret most people never understand about attraction is that the moment you stop forcing love, everything begins to change. And that is why emotional detachment is so powerful. Not because it is a manipulation tactic, not because it is a game, but because detachment restores the one thing desperation destroys, your emotional freedom. See, many people think the way to keep someone close is by holding on tighter. They believe if they give more attention, more effort, more emotional energy, the other person will finally recognize their value and stay. But when your actions are driven by fear of losing someone, you slowly lose yourself in the process. You begin chasing instead of attracting. Your thoughts revolve around them constantly. Your emotions become controlled by their behavior. A delayed reply ruins your mood. Distance creates panic. Silence creates anxiety. And without realizing it, your happiness becomes emotionally dependent on another person's validation. That is not love anymore. That is emotional attachment mixed with fear. And fear always weakens your energy because people can sense when someone is desperately trying to hold on to them. They can feel the pressure, the emotional neediness, the fear of abandonment hidden behind constant attention. And while love feels warm and peaceful, desperation feels emotionally heavy. It pushes instead of attracts. That's why detachment changes the entire dynamic. Detachment says, I care about you, but I refuse to lose myself trying to keep you. It creates emotional balance. It allows you to love without begging, care without chasing, and walk away without feeling like your life is ending. And once you reach that emotional state, your energy becomes completely different. Calmer, stronger, more attractive, because now your peace no longer depends on controlling the outcome. You stop obsessing over whether someone stays or leaves because you finally understand that your value exists independently from their decision. That confidence becomes magnetic because emotionally secure people naturally stand out in a world full of emotional chaos. And ironically, this is often when someone starts chasing you again, because the attention they once took for granted no longer feels guaranteed. Your energy shifts from fear to peace, from desperation to confidence, from emotional dependency to emotional stability. And people notice when someone genuinely just from needing validation. But here is the part most people misunderstand. True detachment is not pretending not to care while secretly waiting for attention. Real detachment is internal. It's reaching a point where your life genuinely becomes bigger than the relationship itself. You reconnect with your purpose, your goals, your happiness. You stop waking up every day emotionally centered around another person's choices. That is real power, because now whether someone returns or not, you remain whole. Your confidence remains intact. Your peace remains protected. And that emotional freedom changes the way people experience your presence. You no longer feel emotionally clingy or draining. You feel grounded, balanced, valuable. And people naturally gravitate toward energy that feels emotionally healthy. But the greatest part of detachment is not making someone miss you. It's rediscovering yourself again. It's realizing that you were never meant to beg for love, chase attention, or sacrifice your emotional stabilities just to keep someone interested. Because the strongest relationships are not built on fear of losing each other. They are built on two emotionally whole people choosing each other freely, without desperation, pressure, or emotional dependency. And sometimes, the moment you finally stop chasing love is the exact moment love starts chasing you back.